Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. For today I'm going to be reviewing the new Gourmande Girls palette. This is the Calavera palette. I'm probably butchering that. But if you want to see several looks, swatches, close-ups, all the things, then please stick around for today's video and make sure you are subscribed before leaving today. So before I get into my review, I just want to preface this by saying, number one, I'm not a big fan of skulls. Number two, I'm not a big fan of large palettes, and this is a huge palette. And three, I am not the biggest fan of all colorful palettes. So take my review with a grain of salt. I will definitely keep it real with you and give you my honest opinions, but at the end of the day, not every palette is going to be made for everybody. So I just wanted to make sure I got that out of the way because I don't want this to be the only review you watch. Keep in mind, this is not a palette that I would typically reach for on the daily. Let me go ahead, zoom you up, and read you all some information on this new palette. Gourmande Girls will be launching Calavera on Friday, September 27th at 8 a.m. PST, 10 a.m. CST, 11 a.m. EST, and this will retail for $64.99. You can use my affiliate code. It is BRITTANYRAE. Thank you so much if you do decide to use my discount code and support me. You can use anyone's discount code. Just make sure you use a code to help save some money. So this palette, it says that whether you celebrate Day of the Dead, spooky season, both, or nothing at all, this launch is for everybody. This is a huge palette. This has 25 shades in it, and it has 5 shimmers, and then one matte that does have red sparkles throughout. This is a beautiful, huge palette that has pastels, grungy shades, some jewel tones. Honestly, it has lots of contrast within the tones. I wanted to swatch this palette a little bit different than how I normally do swatches just because of how large this palette was. It honestly would not fit all on my arm, so I just kind of did it in groupings. That was the easiest way I could possibly get pictures and just so you could see everything. Now I will say, whenever I swatched this palette, honestly, low-key, like, I kind of struggled. A lot of the mattes I had to build and build and build. I'm not even talking pastels. Those were very vibrant and beautiful. I did not have any struggles with that. I'm talking about more of like the purples, the pinks, especially the blues, even the gray. Like, I had to really build, and then some of the greens were like really dry and flaky. So if the swatches don't look the best, it's never my intention to make swatches look good. It is the shadow's job to look good. So I just wanted to say that. I'm never here like trying to build and build and build so you can see pretty swatches. I just want to make sure that my swatches are a true representation of the tones and the colors of the shimmers and the mattes in the palette. I try my hardest to make sure you can see what you're actually gonna get. That's why I try to do like regular light, low light. Sometimes if the sun's out, I'll do natural light. So that's just kind of like my rant on swatches in case you were curious. But that's why I honestly did so many looks with this palette, because of the swatches. But thankfully they performed better than they swatched. So that was kind of why I wanted to make sure I used every single shade in the palette, just so I would have more confidence reviewing this palette for you. Okay, so for these looks that I'm about to create, I'm mainly focusing on the matte shades just because I struggled with them whenever I was swatching them. And I must say, they were not the easiest mattes I have ever used by far. So as you can see for the video, most of the time I'm taking my time having to blend and blend and pack and blend and buff and like do all that I can. So I'm doing a little bit more of extravagant looks for me personally. I'm not just doing like my typical look. So that's why these looks may take me a little bit longer than usual, just because I'm really trying to get to know this matte formula. And I must say that the white in this palette is one of my favorite shades. It helps everything else blend. It's just one of the best mattes as far as like the white in my collection. It is such a good matte, and I just wanted to have fun and do some cool wings. And also I wanted to utilize the shimmers because this beautiful iridescent shade, I just knew it would just kind of make the look and pop. So for the second look, I wanted more of like a fall warm tone vibe, and I want to do a fun wing in the orange. Excuse me, it was kind of a struggle to build and build, so that's why you see me having to blend and blend and then go back into the white. And I did want to use a little bit of the red shimmer, which is a beautiful multi-chrome from like red to orange, and it's more very smooth if you're curious on that texture. And then obviously that textured shade, that iridescent, it does not work the best with a brush, so you would need to use your fingers to get the best impact if you were curious, because with a brush it just kept like flaking all over my face. But I love these two looks. It was a little bit of a struggle bus to get to them, but I think that it ended up being really cute in the end, and I just love the way the shimmers were sparkling and shifting. Truly beautiful shades. And sorry my camera kept going out of focus, and my husband like walked in and was laughing at me, so it was just hard to film that part. Next, I wanted to focus on more of a purpley look, and I will say the purples, like as you can see, I have to keep building and building and building. I'm going to try to swatch these because I'm filming this voiceover quite a few days after filming this video, and I've created other looks and I didn't love them as much, and I still had struggled with them. So I'm going to swatch these for you before I kind of continue on with the last look I'm going to do, just so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. But just keep in mind that all the other creators, like I feel like the oddball out, I'm not going to lie, because no one else is having problems with their mattes. Like I don't know if I got a dud or if it's just a me problem, but for sure these mattes are not the Gourmande Girls formula that I know and love. But I do like how the looks turned out. I love this iridescent. I always try to like use that for a fun pop. Okay, now the pink look, I must say, was an epic fail. I kept trying to build and build this pink on, layering the pinks. There's two different pinks in the palette, and also tried to layer on the red. Nothing would work. I ended up just giving up and washing it off because it just was not blending and looking good. So this is another look that I really struggled with. So this was pinks, and then I ended up doing the grays, and the gray would just not build on the pink. It's like the mattes won't stick to my lids. And yes, I used a base as well. So as you can see, I'm just going to keep on building, and I do have to go into the white shade to blend just because it's easier. And it made me feel like I didn't know how to blend, but I never struggle with mattes quite this bad. Typically, whenever I get a palette, normally like they just work really good. It just comes down to like what color story you're into, but these definitely gave me the challenge. But as far as like the shimmers go, they were just fun to play with. Not really my favorite shimmers, but as you can see, that white in the palette truly saved almost every single look in my opinion. And I actually do love how this look ended up coming out. It was like a journey to get to the point. And as you can see, like the pink shimmers just don't pack a punch on me, so I always save it with an iridescent because I guess that's just who I am. And I must say that the gray in the palette was not it. The black worked a little bit better, but it definitely was a little bit of a struggle to deepen out the outer corner. But I do like how every look turned out. I think they turned out cute. Okay, I want to go ahead and swatch a few of the mattes before we move on to my last look that I'm going to create with you, just so you can kind of see what's going on, like what I'm experiencing, because no one else is experiencing what I am. So let's just swatch them. I think that the strongest mattes in the palette is by far the beautiful pastels. They are truly gorgeous. Even some of the neons, like they're amazing. Like mattes typically, like they don't always swatch the way that they would be used on the eye, but these are good. They're a little powdery, but you don't have to work and work and work on the pastels or the really intense vibrant shades as far as like almost neon is concerned. But now let's move on to some of the shades that I struggled with. Okay, so this blue right here was like non-existent. I don't even know how to describe it. It just like and then I would keep building and it wouldn't, I don't know, this blue is just a miss for me. And now the purples, a lot of them, they're not like their creamy formulation that I see from the brand. They're just weird and dry. My throat's really irritated right now. We're getting over another cold. And then this green shade, it's like intense, like flaky. I don't even know. It's like drying out. But this one did build. As the next look you'll see, this truly worked better on my eyes than it did in this swatch. So it's a little bit drier, but it actually performed really nice in the look you're about to see. Let me do a purple. So the purples, they are really pigmented. They're just drier, and whenever you build it on, it kind of like goes poof, and you have to like keep going back and back in. It's like blending away. And like this isn't a shade where I had to blend. I had to pack this one, and even when I packed it, it's like it would just go like disappear on me. Now the pinks was not it for me. Like these pinks, I just simply couldn't get them to work the best on me. So let's go ahead. Like it looks very vibrant on the swatch, but on my eyes it wouldn't stick to my lids, and typically like I don't have that problem. I'm not a makeup artist. I'm just saying typically I don't struggle working with colorful shades when I'm just trying to get them on my eyes, but they wouldn't stick. That's why I'm saying like this is a light pink in the palette, same thing. It just like, where did it go, you know? And when you try to build it on, it just keeps disappearing. And normally I don't have that issue, so I wanted to just kind of throw this in here because I filmed this video days and days before I'm filming this part, but everyone loves this palette, so please do not let this be the only review you watch. I don't know if I got a dud, but these mattes are just not it for me, so I just wanted to like kind of insert this clip just to show you like my mattes are dry and powdery, flaky. They're not the creamy, lovely Gourmande Girls formula that I typically see from the brand. I don't know what's up with this palette, or at least mine, because everyone else is loving it, but I don't know, guys. They're just not sticking to my lids. And I don't know if I've already said this, but I have created 2 other looks and it wouldn't stick. And it took me like 20 minutes just to blend some mattes, and I'm like, I don't get it. So this one, unfortunately, it's not working out for me. Okay, so now that you have seen me play with this palette, let me show you how I would utilize it, because obviously these tones are just not something that I gravitate towards. So let me just show you how I would typically go into this palette and use it for a fun pop. Sorry, my makeup's a hot mess. I've done 5 looks, but only 4 ended up working out, as you saw. I'm going to go into the Spooked palette, and I'm just going to grab a brown. I know, boring, but that's okay because I'm boring. And I'm just going to place a brown. It can be bronzer, literally whatever shade you want to put in your crease for the day. You just pop that sucker on. I just feel like a brown would have gone so far in this new palette, because holy moly, she is colorful. And I can already tell just how better the Spooked mattes are. Like it's a better formulation in my opinion. I'm going to pop that on the lower lash line as well. I will do a little bit of the green just because I want to play with this matte again. It's very, I don't even know, dry, and like you get a ton of kick up. So I wanted to play with this one again, and I'm going to put this on the lower lash line. It seems to be working fine. You just have lots of kick up with this shade, and it's a little bit of a drier matte. I don't know. It's definitely something I'm not used to from Gourmande Girls, this matte in particular. Here we go. And then as far as the shimmers go, I want to play with this one just because I feel like out of this palette, the 2 iridescent shades, these are like the most luxurious. And then this one's pretty, so is this one. These 2 are shifty. They're okay, but this one right here is just like lackluster in my opinion. And I'm just gonna put the shimmer all over the lid. This is so pretty. I'm seeing purple and pink. That's a very beautiful shimmer. And I'm gonna go into this one and just pop that right on top. Okay, it has been several hours, but this is a finished look, and this is how I like doing colorful looks. I like mixing them with neutrals, so I by far love this look the best. It's not as fun and creative as the others, but it's just in my comfort zone. But I had so much fun just kind of like playing with the other shades. But I just wanted to show you something that I enjoy and how I would utilize this palette in the future. So I'm going to go ahead and turn down the brightness. Okay, I'm going to swatch the shimmers. I'm going to swatch my 2 favorites, which these are more of like the iridescent shades in the palette. The first one's like really chunky and the other one's a little bit softer. But let's go ahead and swatch these beauties. For me, these 2 shades kind of made the palette. If you're just kind of curious, these are my 2 favorite shimmers. Also, I'm just a sucker for an iridescent shade. Let's see. Let me go on to the blue, which is a very smooth shade, and also the red. These are pretty, very smooth, a little bit lackluster in my opinion. These are more of a thinner formula if you were curious, and you do have to build up the blue. The blue is more of like a topper in my opinion, but you can build it up. We have one more shimmer, which is the pink, and this one is like borderline satin. It is a shimmer, but it's still very like meh. I don't know. It's very, like, you can just tell almost, it's just meh. I don't know. It's not my favorite shimmer if you are curious. And this is an expensive palette. I think it was $64.99 or something. Like, it's really expensive. So there we have it. Those are the shimmers in the palette. Now, we do have a black matte with some sparkles in there. So it's not a shimmer, but it still has sparkle. So I want to share this with you as well. It doesn't swatch the best, but it's still really pretty. And I use every single shade in the palette today. So I have a good feel of these. Keep in mind, this is just personal preference, just my opinion. I personally like these two. Shimmer's the best. This is more of a topper and buildable. This is a really pretty, like a red to orange with some gold in there. I typically don't really like mattes that have sparkle, but I think it's cute. I just kind of did some liner and a few other looks, and this shimmer is just like, it's okay. Not my favorite. So that's kind of like my thoughts on the shimmers. Let me get my mirror because there are some that are shifty. There you have it. Beautiful. You'll have to let me know, what shimmer do you like the best and what is your favorite shimmer formula? I'm going to go ahead, zoom you out, and give you my first impression thoughts on this palette. Let's go over my thoughts on this palette. I use every single shade in it. Let's start off with the packaging. I personally, like I said, I'm not a big fan of skulls, so for that reason, I'm not a big fan of the packaging. But Doodles by the Bunny is so talented, so that's not to say that this isn't pretty, because she is very talented. It's just not something that I personally enjoy for me. And as far as the color story, I am a neutral lover with pops of colors. I love spicy neutrals, grungy shades, even smoky shades, and pastels. But when it comes to a rainbow palette, I'm like, help. Like, if you don't put a brown in here, I'm like, help. You know what I mean? If I'm just simply using one palette. Now, I'm fine if I mix and match this with another palette. So that's kind of my thoughts on the color story. Now, I will say, as far as like the formulation goes, I think that the mattes performed better than they swatched. When I swatched these mattes, I was like, oh my gosh, like these are really bad mattes. And then once I used them, I will say that some are better than others. The pastels were amazing. Some of the purples, they actually were nice. The gray was nice. I just had to take a little bit more time with those shades, especially the greens and the blues. The pinks were kind of the most difficult for me to work with. So I will say that some are good, some are just a little bit harder to work with. I don't think that this is their best mattes palette, in my opinion. I much prefer some of their others, like Spooked, Haunted. Those are like the palettes that I absolutely adore from the brand. The Peach palette, things like that. I love that formulation. And in here, I love the pastels, but as far as like some of the other shades, it just took me some extra time. Now, keep in mind, I'm not someone who does lots of extravagant, colorful looks, so that could also be a factor. The fact that I'm not always reaching for pinks and like really bright, vibrant shades. I'm just sharing with you my opinion. So, is this my favorite formulation for them? No. Now let's move on to the shimmer shades in the palette. I love the two iridescents. Like, that's just my comfort zone. I love me a good iridescent multichrome. They're beautiful. And this is like a beautiful eye shade. It's just, they're stunning. I love those. As far as like these two right here, I'm okay. Like, it's just meh. Like, this is more of a topper for me. I really don't like the pinky one at all. If I'm just being honest, it's like a little bit lackluster. It's almost close to a satin in my opinion. But if you like a more traditional shimmer, then I'm sure you'll like that. But these two are very smooth. This multi-chrome duochrome, it's really pretty. So I do like this one as well. But this is, the blue one's more like a topper for me. So just keep that in mind. I think that this palette is good, but it's not my favorite, and it's a very expensive palette. So I just kind of want to end this by saying, would I have purchased this palette if it wasn't sent to me? And the answer is no, because I'm not someone who likes skulls. I don't like a very huge large palette, and this is a big 25 pan palette, so that's another factor. And it's a rainbow palette at the end of the day, so I wouldn't buy this if it wasn't sent to me. But that's just kind of my thoughts. Not every palette is for you, but I'm just here to hang out with you, share my honest opinion. And I do hope that you like the fact that I was able to, I just made it my goal, because they swatched so weird. I was like, you know what, you're going to use every single shade in the palette. You're not going to do just like your typical boring looks where you just like kind of do like an all blue, an all purple, all green, or like a blue on top and then green on the bottom, or vice versa. I wanted to really step out of my comfort zone and do some more extravagant looks for me personally, and really get to test the formula, because whenever I swatched, I was like, oh, you really need to take your time with this palette. And I like the looks that I created. There was only one that I literally washed off because those pinks were not doing it for me. But I do hope that you found that helpful, and please ask me any questions down below and I will definitely try to answer it, or I will send you to one of my creator friends who could definitely answer it. But please let me know your thoughts down below. Thank you so much to Gourmande Girls for sending this over to me. I do think that it is pretty, it's just not for me, if that makes sense. But that's going to do it for today's video. Wherever you are in the world, I hope you're doing well. I hope that you are healthy, happy, and safe. Stay beautiful. Bye, guys.